Hello crafty friends, this is the Papered Chef here. In today's Canvas Workspace tutorial, you are going to learn how to create several card backgrounds. The skills you will be learning in this tutorial are how to work with the built-in shapes, how to edit those shapes, you will rotate them, you will resize them, how to make the most of your mat so that you can cut out as many patterns as possible onto your designer series paper, and then how to save this file and transfer the file to your machine where you will cut it out. Finally, I'll be showing you all the cards I created using this technique, and you can use those cards for inspiration. Of course, use whichever pattern paper you have. So let's get started. If you're not sure why your Canvas Workspace looks different from mine, just to know there are two versions. I am using the installed version of Canvas Workspace. That means I downloaded it. It's completely free from support.brother.com. I'm using version 2.3.1. You can also use the online version to create shapes and patterns because I'm using only the free built-in patterns. However, I suggest that you go and download the version that I'm using right now so that you can follow along completely with and learn all of the skills that I'll be teaching you. The first thing you want to do is click on the shape icon. I'm going to be creating two rectangles which will just serve as our backgrounds of our cards. To create a rectangle, you can actually go to the rectangle shape, or I just like to start with a square and change it to a rectangle by resizing it. I go over to the edit panel. To get to the edit panel, click on this icon here, and it is the second panel down. The first panel is properties, and the second panel is edit. You're going to resize your square to turn it into a rectangle. Be sure that your maintain aspect ratio is not checked. Change the width to 5.25 and change the height to 4. Now I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate this rectangle. If you don't have a mouse that has a right click button, or you don't have right click flyout menus, because I am using a Windows PC, then just select one of your rectangles and go up to layer, and you can click on duplicate from the layer menu. At this point, it may not seem like we've done that much, but it's always a good idea to save your file because we're going to be doing a lot more to these. So go up to File, and we're going to save it, and you can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call mine Card Background File, or Card Backgrounds. Go to File, Save As, or Save. My capitals were locked, but I changed it to Card Backgrounds. I like to use a capital C and a capital B so my file names are easier to read. So now the first card background I found very interesting was it's under shapes and it's under the category of other. It is this shape here. I don't know the name for this type of shape. If you're using your machine, which you can do, and because this will be one of the built-in shapes, they'll have a file. The shape will have a file name. I'm going to place this onto the mat. And I'm going to resize it to the same dimensions as my card background. I'm going to make it 5.25 by 4. I'm just going to move it on top of one of the cards for now, just so you can see how that will look when we make this as a card background. Pretty neat, but we don't want to leave it there to cut it like that, because I actually don't want those little circular shapes. I want to maximize the most I can get out of my mat. So I'm going to move it back off of the card background. I just wanted to do that as a visual indication of what's going on. All right, so next I'm going to create a triangular background. And don't worry, we're going to fit all of these shapes onto the mat. We're going to create another rectangle. Again, it is 5.25 wide by 4 inches tall. That's all my card backgrounds. I work in inches. That is my card backgrounds for all the cards I make, pretty much. That's what I start out with. I'm going to be cutting this background apart, and we're going to have some triangular and sort of diagonal shapes, which really look nice as card background layers. And I want the triangle here, the 1, 2, 3, the fifth triangle, because it is a right triangle, meaning it's as a 90-degree angle in that triangle. So I'm going to take that triangle, I'm going to put it onto the mat. And just incidentally, I could have used this other triangle, number 7. That is also a right triangle. So now I'm going to resize this triangle, and I'm going to make it, I want to cut my card apart in half. And we've done this before on my channel, where we've created some triangular card backgrounds, but now I'm doing it with Canvas Workspace instead of on the machine itself. So what I want to do is I want to resize this to be 5.25 wide again and 4 high. I'm going to place this triangle on top of the rectangle, and then I'm going to group them. I'm going to align them. Okay, that's your first skill. I'm going to align them, and that's one of the editing features, and I'm going to group them. So let's do all those things. To select both of them, I use my mouse to drag around both of those objects. They're both selected. I'm going to align them first using the Align tools here in the Edit panel. So what I've done is I've aligned the center and I've aligned the middle. And another term for that is called centering vertically and centering horizontally. These are perfectly aligned on top of each other, but if I move them, they will come apart. So you need to group these objects together. I like to use the keyboard shortcut, Control G. You could also right-click and group, or you can use the layers menu, and the layer menu, and you could say layer group. Okay, so to review, there are 3 ways to group objects. You can right-click and group. You can use the keyboard shortcut Control G for grouping, or you can go to the layers menu and group. Now that they're grouped together, I'm going to make 2 smaller triangles. Select the same triangle we started with earlier. Add it to the mat. The width of this triangle is going to be 2.63 inches wide. And 2 inches high. And I will also have an easier, in the description of this video, you're going to have instructions which you can easily copy and paste and print out as well. Okay, so these instructions will be there for you. So now let's put this triangle, before I put it onto the background and I group it, I need to duplicate it. Okay, so I need to copy it. Again, you can right click. You can duplicate that way. And you guessed it, you can go up to the layer menu and duplicate as well. Now I'm going to, one at a time, align the triangle to the background. Okay, that's what I'm going to do first. And then I'm going to group it to the background. So watch me do this. So what I just did, and I'm going to do it again with the next triangle, is this. I first put the triangle onto the background. Then I aligned it to the right and to the bottom in relation to the background. So in other words, that's how this triangle ended up down here. Finally, I selected both the triangle and the background, and I grouped them together. Now watch how I do this opposite with this triangle here. But first, I'm going to show you how to rotate the triangle. And you guessed it, there's more than one way to rotate. I'm going to select the triangle. I can drag on the rotation handle, which is the little circle. I can hold my shift key and I can rotate it that way. Or, let me undo that. I'm back to normal. In other words, it's not rotated. The other way is to go over to the edit panel and you can transform and rotate that way. Where it says angle, you can type in 180 degrees. Notice the rotation handle is on the bottom now. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to put the triangle on top of the rectangle. I'm going to align it. And then I'm going to select all objects and group them. So watch me do this slower. I'm just repeating what I did earlier with the smaller triangle. All right, to review, these objects are grouped together right now. By hitting Control G, if you haven't done it already, you should have one group. In other words, all of these are one object. The background and the two triangles, they're all one object, they're grouped together. Now I can take the final triangle, and I'm going to show you how I did it earlier. I'm going to first place it on top of the rectangle. Next, I'm going to select both objects, the background and the triangle. Next, I'm going to align them. I'm going to align this triangle to the left and to the top. And finally, I'm going to group the triangle with the background. Again, Control G, your right-click menu, or your layers panel. Now I have another interesting background, which would be really hard to do with a paper trimmer, really hard to cut. I've tried to cut many triangles and angles with my paper trimmers before, and I just didn't have the accuracy my ScanNCut gives me. I prefer this type of background using the ScanNCut. I just placed those over the card background so you can see that those are the exact same size. It's just going to be cut apart. All right, so now we have another background to make. So let's do the next background. So again, we're going to make the square. We're going to take the square and turn it into a rectangle. We're going to do that again. That's always what I start with. And you could just do that, or you could duplicate one of the rectangles already on the screen. Okay, so one shape you might not be used to working with is a line shape. The lines are really handy for dividing up. So I'm going to make what's called a cutting line. So I want to cut this rectangle in half. That's going to be my card background. You've seen me do this on the machine if you've watched my YouTube channel. In fact, I'll link to the other card background tutorials I've done. But now we're going to do it in Canvas Workspace. To create a line, we're going to click on the Path tool. So go select the Path tool. So now you're going to create a line. You're going to see, you see there's a little dot. We're going to click on that, click on the dot, click on the mat, click on the Path tool, click on the mat, hold the Shift key, and click 2 more times. You're clicking 1 more time to make the second node of your path, which makes a line. And then the last time you click, the last time I clicked was just to set that. In other words, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm creating the line by setting the last node in place. If not, it'll let me keep on drawing more nodes, more parts of the path. So again, I'm going to do this a little bit slower. Path tool, click the first node onto the mat, hold my shift key, created the second node, and now I'm going to, in the exact same spot, I'm not moving my mouse, I'm going to click one more time. That creates the entire line. I know the entire line is created because it's now a shape, and I can now sort of rotate it the way we learned earlier. So let's resize this line. It's going to be, yes, 4 inches. That's right, 4 inches. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to like divide this background vertically, so I want to rotate it. Using the rotation handle and holding my shift key, I rotated the line 90 degrees. Now I'm going to put it on top of the card so you can see what's going on. I'm going to align. I hope you can anticipate what I'm about to do. I'm going to align this line to the card background. I'm aligning it both in the center and in the middle. Again, both vertically and horizontally. Now I'm going to select both the line and I'm going to select the rectangle, and I want to group those two together. And that time, instead of using the Control-G method, I used the right-click method. Right, now we have our background is cut in half perfectly, but this is a cutting line, so we have 2 pieces, perfect rectangles to cut our card in half. But let's cut it one more time because that makes it even more interesting. I'm going to just go ahead and use the line that we already have. I'm going to resize it. And I want to resize this one to 2.63 in width. I typed in 2.63, enter. Now I'm going to place this onto the rectangle. And while selecting both objects, I will align it. This time I aligned it to the left because I want the line to divide the left half of the card background, and I aligned it again to the middle. So now we're going to group those 2 objects. The 2 objects being the small line and the other part we had earlier. So far we have 3 interesting types of card backgrounds, and we're going to make one more interesting type of card background using the built-in shapes and going to the category of other. I'm choosing this trapezoid shape here, and I'm going to put it on the screen, on the mat. I'm going to resize it. It is going to be 2.5 in width. And 4 inches in height. Now that I've resized it, I can go ahead and duplicate it. One of the objectives of this tutorial was to teach you how to maximize your space on your mat. Right now we have 4 nice card backgrounds being cut on the top part of the mat. These will not transfer to the machine the way they are now because they're not fitting inside this red line. Everything you transfer to your machine has to fit inside the red line. Let me go ahead and save because you should save often. I clicked on File Save. The objective in this last section now is to just rotate these last 3 objects on the bottom enough so that they fit inside the red line. I used the rotation handle and I rotated it 270 degrees. Notice how it says transform 270 over here. I took the second one and I rotated it 90 degrees. Notice how it says 90 degrees over here. Now you're going to be able to cut up both of those on the mat, and I'm going to move them over to the right a little more, as much as they'll go over to the right, because I need room for the shape on the left. Be sure that as you reposition your shapes for your card backgrounds, that you always keep everything inside the red line. Lastly, let's rotate this nice shape over on the left so that it fits inside the cutting area. The angle of rotation that works is 325 degrees. Using my keyboard, I'm doing what's called nudging. I don't want anything to be on the red line. I don't want these to be too close to the rectangles above or the shapes to the right. So I'm just going to nudge that object away to give it a little bit of space. And there you have it. We have maximized our background of the mat here, so we can cut out a piece of 12 by 12 designer series paper. And lots of great things are going to fit on it. You could even make one tiny narrow rectangle in this area here if you really want to get some more out of your designer series paper. Let's do this. Let's save and let's transfer it to the machine. That's what we're doing next. There are a few ways to transfer files to your machine. We're going to be using the wireless transfer method. So you go up to the File menu and you say File, you click on File, Transfer FCM file via the internet. I got the green check mark, which is good. It says machine is ready to download the file. So in the next part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to retrieve this file onto your ScanNCut so that you can cut it out. And then I'm going to show you the cards you can make using these backgrounds. Thank you. Now we are going to cut out the card backgrounds using both the SDX model of machine and the CM model of machine. That way you can follow along with whichever model you have. So first let's do the SDX125. I have a piece of Follow Your Art designer series paper. It's really good to use paper with small patterns. I'll show you the rest of these patterns later. You know, when you're doing this because of the small shapes that we're cutting out, and then these patterns will appear in those shapes. I'm going to put my hand on the mat like this, but don't put it under the rollers. I'm going to load my mat. I will show you that load mat button in just a minute, but I just need to load my mat before I move the camera, the machine near the camera. Otherwise, my mat literally falls off my table when I try to move my ScanNCut. Sometimes it goes in straight, and sometimes it doesn't. So I think it's in there. I think it's good. So now what I'm going to do is show you the screen, and you'll get to see that mat load button. You won't miss any steps. That's the way my tutorials are. Hopefully pretty complete for you. So what we're doing now is I'm going to back up the camera and I'm going to show you what button I just used to load the mat. So you saw how I held my hands, and that's the button right there. Okay, that's the load mat button. Here, I'm going to point at it. And I apologize that I thought I was grabbing my stylus, but I actually grabbed a paintbrush instead, but it will be my stylus right now. So that's the load map button. So now you turn on your SDX machine and you want to retrieve the file that we just created inside of Canvas Workspace. So you're going to go to retrieve data. Now you're going to retrieve it. You can retrieve it from all these places. The machine itself, the USB, the computer USB cord, but we're going to retrieve it with this one up here to the top right. This one is the Canvas Workspace icon. So we are retrieving the file from Canvas Workspace, and you see the little wireless symbol. So that's the option we want. Okay, there's the file. Okay, everything is looking just like we want it. So now we're going to cut out the card backgrounds. We're going to say okay. We're going to select cut. Okay, I'm using auto blade, meaning This is an SDX model. SDX models come with auto blade technology. They do not have blade depths. They don't have numbers on them. The blade just knows what depth to use. Okay, I leave all the settings at their default. Auto pressure. I mean, these are all just the settings I left at their default. Let's see, speed. I didn't make sure they're at the defaults. How do I know they're at the defaults? Is because there's a black line around, a black box around these settings. Yep, everything's the default, so that's good. We're just going to start. We're going to do cut. It's using auto blade. Everything's good to go. I'm going to cut this out, and it's going to take 2 minutes. So I won't make you wait, but I do want to show you how I would unload the mat and how I would retrieve these from the mat. So we'll see you in 2 minutes. The SDX125 is finished cutting. I click OK, and now I click this button to unload the mat. And now I'm going to get out. You gotta get out your little spatula. And here's, so this mat, just by the way, the mat for the SDX125, it only loads in one direction. And you can tell it's an SDX125 mat because there's a hole in it, so you could hang your mat. Okay, but this is the SDX. So what I'm going to do is pull off the corner. I'm just using my spatula, see? So, I mean, you can use your spatula if you want. You for the first part. I mean, you don't need it till the second part. The first part is just pull this extra off. So pull this piece off like that, and then you use your spatula. Okay, I just wanted you to see all the pieces. Okay, so here are all our pieces. We utilized our mat. That was one of the objectives. See how we have these little triangles? So what I did is I did a whole entire pack of paper. Follow Your Art Designer Series paper. And I cut all these shapes out with a whole pack of paper. You'll see the cards I created as a result. And these are the rectangles. Okay. Let's see. These are the card backgrounds. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing with now I just have to clear my table. I'm going to put the CM350 here. So we're going to put the CM350, but go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put the mat down and just show you the mat difference. So this is the CM350 mat. Notice how there's arrows in both directions. And that's what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to clear off my SDX, come back, show you how to do the same thing with the CM350, how to retrieve and cut a file. Okay, I have another piece of Follow Your Art Designer Series paper. And I'm just putting it on the mat. The mat's pretty sticky because I just restuck it recently. I'm just bringing this over to show you this part. So I'm putting my hand right there. So when I load the mat with the load mat button, and I'll show you that button, then it just kind of goes in straight. Okay, I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to just talk about the blade. The blade now, because I'm using a CM, I have to set the blade depth for Designer Series paper. It doesn't just know. It doesn't know at all, and you have to tell it. So let's go. I just go back to 12 to set the blade depth, and then I go back to the number I need. So for Designer Series paper by Stampin' Up, which is what I use most of the time, it's a blade depth of 3. So you change your blade depth to go up to 12 and then back to 3, and you can see a little bit of blade sticking out, but not much. Paper is pretty thin. You don't want your blade depth to be too high because then you end up with holes in your mat. And I've done that, been there, done that. I've had holes in my mat. I don't know how many times I've had holes in my mat. Boy, that looks pretty close up, doesn't it? I'm just adjusting my tripod. So here's the load mat button because now I'm pretty close up here. I have to move my camera back a little bit. All right. Hopefully you can see. Yeah, there you go. So we can see the load mat. That was the load mat button. And now that might be out of view now by the time I moved. There we go. I can't see where my finger is, by the way, because of the way my camera is hanging onto the tripod by a thread. All right, so here we go. So you're going to go to Pattern. And now we are on the CM models. So your CM models are going to work this way. You see this screen, and you want to use this button to retrieve the file from Canvas Workspace. The one with the cloud and the little cloud in the machine. Okay, so it's retrieving the file. And the reason I wanted to show you both machines is this. You may have a question like, what if I registered my Canvas Workspace with more than one machine? It will work. See, here's my same file. Because both of my machines have Papered Chef. This machine has an account called Papered Chef registered to it, and it's also on my wireless network. My other machine that you just saw has Papered Chef account registered to it, and it's also on the wireless network. Therefore, I can keep retrieving the same file on both machines, which is nice. All right, so that's it. So we're going to say okay, and we're going to cut. So now you know how to cut, and we'll see you in, let's see, the same thing, 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes to cut. This machine's much noisier. I'll see you in 2 minutes. Finished cutting, we click OK. We unload the mat. And now, for the fun, I'm going to show you how we go about using these pieces. And then I'm going to show you all the cards I created and using these as an example. So let's do this, because I want you to get the big picture. So let's pull this off. Before I start showing you what the other paper looks like, let's just do this. You know, we have these little pieces. We have the triangles. All right, so we have... Now I did this to an entire pack of paper, and then you are left with this. So you're making cards, okay? I hope you can get this concept down. This concept is, if you have an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, you cut it in half and you score it, you get 2 card bases, okay? So go ahead and do all that. You cut yourself many card bases at once. Do all that. Cardstock. Stampin' Up! Cardstock coordinates with our designer series paper. This happens to be crushed curry. Then you take all these pieces I just told you about. Okay, here's all the pieces. Here, let's just take one of these. Let's just take the one we just cut out. And you place one of these down. So now you have your background. And you don't even need the whole background on all of them. Sometimes you can just put one of these other pieces down. But that's it. Now, this is why I think this is so fun to use your ScanNCut, because now it's just a matter of completing a puzzle. So now you can take your other shapes. Actually, let's do this. Let's make this card vertical, because the way the paintbrushes are. And this is just the ones we just cut out. Okay, you can take your other shapes and layer them like this. And this is why I was telling you I like to choose a small pattern paper. Okay, so that's not all. Now I'm going to go through each of these patterns we just cut out, turning on my light and giving you lots and lots of examples. This paper I chose for several reasons. One, it has small patterns, and use up your small patterns. 2, I need a lot of cards for my crafty friends, and they're going to like these kind of cards. And 3, it's on clearance. And I love when my viewers, subscribers, you know, my crafty friends get a good deal. This is on clearance. It's a bargain. It's $4.40. Regular price was $11 or $11.50, I think. It's now $4.60 for 12 pieces of double-sided Follow Your Art Designer Series paper. So go get that before it's all gone. It's while supplies last. Here's just a few pieces of that paper. Now I'm going to show you the cards. So I think these are my only full sheets. I'll be popping more of those papers in my cart. Okay, so these are just great small patterns for doing what I'm showing you. Now let me put down maybe this one to show you my cards. I'll put down this pattern. All right, so here we go. You had the pieces of paper that were looking like the one I just showed you. Let's go back to this. I just need to get these loose. So we have these. So you would start layering them up. Okay, you layer them up, you use some rolling adhesive, you tape them on. Or glue them on, okay? You can even use glue. You don't need a card background. They would look cool just like this, okay? Because I keep a little border around the cards, okay? Now you can do something like this. This is me layering them on, 2 different kinds, putting a piece of designer series paper behind it, and this is room for my sentiment, okay? This is because I used the sentiment, which I'll show you. But you don't have to keep them straight like that. You could take these pieces and layer them at these different angles. Okay, I'm using all coordinating colors with the designer series paper so that it'll all look. See how that goes? So there's a piece of designer series paper in the background, and all this is, I like to be visual. It's something like this. It's like the piece goes like that. You take one of the pieces like that, and you take one of the pieces like that. They're double-sided. Okay, so you can come up with these really cool patterns by just taking all the shapes we cut out. And here's the result. So the result of doing that is this kind of card here, where I use do something. This is, I know this is, I don't know if it's last chance item. Do something creative every day. We've had this stamp set for a couple years. I'm not sure if it's staying around. I haven't had time to really look through the retiring list yet, but this is what I used. Definitely this paper is on clearance though. $4.60, you can't beat it. So do something creative every day. This little embellishment kit as well is definitely, and there's hardly any left, hardly any embellishments left, but this is on sale for $6.60, and all of my little felt embellishments, these little pieces of felt that are all stitched, they're all on sale. Okay, so that's called the Follow Your Art Embellishment Kit. It all starts as art is where I got these little buttons to stamp, these little buttons here. This coordinates with the follow your art. Okay, great sentiments. But I used for my cards, because they're for my crafty friends, I used do something creative every day. I just think this is a good inspirational quote for the times that we're in, because, right, you know, everybody needs a little pick-me-up like that. Okay, now, let's do this. Okay, so we have do something creative every day. Now this one is, let me find a piece of paper. So now I'm starting to use just Whisper White cardstock behind as my layer. And this is a piece of, so basic smoky slate. And then this was crushed curry. This one was Calypso Coral. I'm just telling you the card backgrounds I used. So for this one, I used a piece of Whisper White cardstock right there. And then I used these little panels. And you can see you can use 2 little panels. That's all you need. You don't need 4 little panels, because you can do some stamping on the opposite panels where you don't put the designer series paper. And that's where I put my sentiments. I cut all these little things out with the ScanNCut. See my tutorials on cutting out pattern paper with the ScanNCut. That's how I cut out these little scissors and things. I stamped here, I stamped there, and stamped it in Blushing Bride, one of the coordinating colors. And I stamped it in Crushed Curry. I used these little felt embellishments. Look at the stitching on those felt embellishments. I mean, how fun are they? Definitely need more of those. And I stamped, the ink I stamped it in was called Pacific Point. This one is a die, this little piece here. I didn't even glue it down. I just stuck it behind it, kind of like it acts like a ribbon. It's a border die that came in the Arts and Crafts dies that came in that suite. That's definitely, I think that's retiring too, but again, don't quote me. But definitely check out my website after this. And you can support my channel that way, helping me, you know, if you want to buy this, just buy it with my link, why not? Okay, this is that piece of paper here, look. It's one of these and one of those. 2 halves. How cool is that? Now, sometimes I put something in the inside just blank. A blank piece of Whisper White in the inside. Okay, and one more example is you just take a piece of card. So now I have a Whisper White card base. Okay, so you don't even need a layer inside because it's already Whisper White. Then I have a piece of Calypso Coral cardstock and just half piece. So I only needed 1 piece of designer series paper there. Okay, so again, all these interesting backgrounds just with the same pack of paper. And I cut this out with the paper from the designer series paper. I needed my pencil trick there, so I still need to erase the pencil mark. Note to self, I'm putting an eraser there so I can erase my pencil mark, because you did need to use my pencil trick. So be sure to check out the tutorial on that. All right, next, moving along. So now I want to show you this. I kind of like to build your skills. So we have these other pieces of paper that were triangles. All right, so we had pieces like this. And now you can layer them on a background like this in different ways. Do you need to use them all? No. Here is a case where I just used a piece of Whisper White and I used 2 of the rows. Okay, so that's a nice background. That's ready to go. Here's another example where I used 2 of the rows that we cut. And then these are left for stamping. This is a piece of Blushing Bride and a piece of Coastal Cabana. Is it Coastal Cabana? I'm already forgetting the knit colors. Oh, it's been this tutorial has taken me at least a week to do, so don't mind me if I'm a little burnt out and frazzled. You don't know how many things didn't make the cut. How many card backgrounds didn't make the cut. All right, this one here, these 2 triangles, that's how they look, and then I have them ready with the buttons. I just need a lot of cards, so I'm just doing things in stages where I make my backgrounds, then I glue them together while I'm watching TV, then I mount them onto different card bases. And here's one where I used all 4. I really like this. I used all 4 pieces. I used all 4 triangles. See, so it's really, then my husband did say, this one's pretty busy. I know, but it's arts and craftsy, that's the point. And then here's the result of that card. Here's when you take it all, you put all your skills together, piece of crushed curry, Calypso Coral, and again, just little embellishments I cut out with the ScanNCut, or else, with the arts and crafts dies, and little stamping onto the cardstock. And that's your example. Okay, and lastly was that strange background. You're like, why is she doing this? What is this all about? Well, I don't know. I've been experimenting with lots of backgrounds and I thought that was really cool. And I measured it so it would fit. So here's a piece of cardstock, and what you do is something like this. Of course, it's going to go at an angle, unless you were to cut it when the paper isn't straight. I mean, it's going to go at an angle like that. Okay, so there you go. And then here's the result of me taking that and putting it onto, this is a piece of Blushing Bride. See how the color of the little pencils matches the Blushing Bride. Okay, here's a little, and these are just little embellishments I have ready to go to put on another card. Here's another piece of that paper. Okay, so just so much fun this paper is. Here's like a vertical, an example of a vertical card. You still get 2 cards out of one piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, whether you make it go vertical or horizontal. You can do different folds. You can do gatefold cards, but you'd have to change your measurements. And here are 2 examples of taking this card background and jazzing it up. So here you go. With that same, I'm using the same sentiment for every card. So here are the examples of those. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. There are the felt things I was trying to show you from the felt embellishment kit that I ran through my sticker machine. So link to that as well. Okay, so there you go. That's what the embellishments are that are on clearance. I couldn't find them a minute ago. Cut out loads of these. Go and cut out loads of these things I'm teaching you about. So cut out all your backgrounds and your pieces. Sit and make yourself 100 cards. It's just so much fun. You know, you can just do so much with the ScanNCut that you wouldn't be able to do. Like, you can't do this on a paper trimmer. So these are examples of just little felt embellishments and stamping and putting that paper to good use. So I hope you like the ideas I came up with, and I hope you'll give these a try. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. This is The Papered Chef.